Venerable Masters, Excellencies, distinguished faith representatives, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Vesak Day ceremony, Healing the World, Prayers and Reflections for All Sentient Beings. My name is Steve Chu from Buddhist Tiji Foundation, and I'm delighted to be joining you here today to serve as your moderator for the event. At the very onset, please allow me to wish you and your loved ones an auspicious and blessed Vesak Day. We're so grateful to have 20 representatives from multilateral agencies and various faith traditions around the world to reflect with us on the spirit of the Buddha's teachings of compassion, interconnectedness, and service to humanity, while also exploring how we respond and recover from the pandemic and the climate crisis in a way that ensures that we leave no one behind. It continues to be a very challenging moment in our shared history, but I hope that for the next 90 minutes, you may find a light of hope, new actions you can take that will heal some of the wounds that you've accumulated, and a path to alleviate the suffering of yourself and those around you. With this, I am now privileged and joyous to welcome the High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, His Excellency Mr. Miguel Moratinos, to share with us some reflections on the spirit of the Buddha's teachings.
Venerable monks, distinguished religious and spiritual leaders, I wish to extend my warmest wishes to all of you celebrating Vesak Day. This is a day when we commemorate Lord Buddha's teaching of peace, compassion, humility, and wisdom. Those virtues embraced by Buddha more than 2,500 years ago are needed today more than ever before. The United Nations community has recognized the significance of that day since 1999, when member states adopted Resolution 54-115, proclaiming the date of Vesak and acknowledging the contribution of Buddhism to the spirituality and humanity. As we start recovering from the pandemic, we also chart a new course towards rebuilding a better world. This is where we can draw inspiration from Buddha's timeless wisdom. Despite the hardship he faced, his core message was that of tolerance, empathy, and humanism. These are virtues that can serve as an inspiration to all of us. At the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, we strive every day to promote and work towards building inclusive, peaceful, and just societies with mutual respect, compassion, and unity as its backbone. This is in line with the Buddha's teaching on the fundamental equality of all people, regardless of status, circumstances, or characteristic. I used to conclude my message by quoting former United Nations Secretary General U Thant, who said, "When we act with compassion and respect, national and international problems will fall into perspective and become easier to solve." I believe this is very true. So on this day of Vesak, let us renew our commitment to stand together as one humanity, show kindness and compassion to the most vulnerable, and truly leave no one behind. My dear friends, let us heal together. Happy Vesak Day.
Thank you to the High Representative, Mr. Moratinos, for your critical reflections on the values enshrined in the Buddha's teachings, which are essential for us to uphold as we recover from the pandemic, to ensure that we build more peaceful, inclusive, and just societies. As we look towards building a better world, I would now like to invite Dr. Eod Abu from the United Nations Environment Program to share with us actions we must take in order to create a green recovery.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me an immense honor to address you today on the commemoration of the Vesak Day in recognition of the contribution that Buddhism has made and continues to make to spread the message of unity and service to humanity. This message of unity and service inspires and requires us to think deeply and seriously amidst the multiple crises we are facing, including the pandemic crisis, the nature crisis, and the economic crisis. When the pandemic started more than a year ago, we all thought that the environmental gains will encourage the international community to learn some lessons and adopt bold approaches to go into a greener path for recovery. However, this did not happen, and our studies show that only 18% of the announced recovery spending can be considered as green. Overall, so far, global green spending has been incommensurate with the scale of ongoing environmental crises, including climate change, nature loss, and pollution, missing significant social and long-term economic benefits. But opportunities to invest sustainably on recovery do still exist. Green recovery can bring stronger economic growth while helping to meet global environmental targets and addressing structural inequality. So how can we ensure building better? First, we need to have a multi-dimensional focus on long-term social and economic crises by urgently prioritizing long-term objectives by nations and move away from rescue measures to long-term recovery measures intended to reinvigorate economic activity. Second, provide emerging market and developing economies substantial concessional finance from international partners. Without it, debt constraints will restrict recovery and economic health, widening the already stark inequality between nations. Third, use green recovery spending to bring stronger economic growth and social benefits. The social co-benefits of carefully designed green policies can include significant improvements to health outcomes, reductions in the cost of energy, and increases in food security, as well as more safer and better paid employment opportunities. UNEP's emission gap report found that a green recovery could cut 25% of the 2030 emissions, while we need to cut 1/3 of emissions by 2030 to get back on track for a +2 degrees world. It is not only nations that can contribute to green recovery, but also other stakeholders such as faith-based institutions. Areas of the use of green energy, green transport, green building upgrades and energy efficiency, natural capital, and green research and development are also areas where dozens of millions of houses of worship, faith-owned schools and hospitals, lands and forests owned by religious institutions, and many others can employ and contribute to green recovery. The Eco Temple Community Development Project by the International Network of Engaged Buddhists and the Interfaith Climate and Ecology Network is a great example demonstrating ecological temple structure and energy system, economic sustainability, integration with surrounding environment, and engagement with the community. There are more than 3,000 temples of Mahayana that have greened or are greening their sacred sites in East and Southeast Asia. Installations of solar panels in the temples of Japan, Thailand, Myanmar, China, India, and South Korea have been excellent practices that show the path for green recovery and a sustainable future. Large quantities of traditional Buddhist temples are constructed with wood or bamboo, the natural and sustainable materials. Interestingly, Wat Pamaha in Thailand, the temple of 1 million bottles, was constructed with recycled beer bottles. Friends, we need to live the Buddha message of unity and service to humanity, as humanity cannot wait any longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Eod, for your wisdom on how we can build back better, and particularly for sharing these pathways that we can take, both as nations and as faith-based organizations, to safeguard our environment for future generations to come. We know that this work cannot be done unless we take a whole of society approach, which is why I would now like to welcome Hawa Diallo from the United Nations Department of Global Communications to share with us some of the work that the department has been doing since the pandemic to facilitate meaningful partnerships and dialogue in this digital world that we find ourselves in.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Taalcamare Diallo, and I am the Chief of the Civil Society Unit in the UN Department of Global Communications. I would like to thank the Buddhist Foundation for inviting me to participate, and I am honored to be able to contribute to this digital ceremony in observance of Vesak Day. I have worked in the United Nations in a number of capacities for the past 35 years, and I am proud to contribute to an organization that brings together faith-based organizations from every corner of the world to act on global issues. During the COVID-19 crisis and the transition to a digital world, the spirit of unity and interconnectedness played an ever more important role in our lives. As we were forced to have limited human connection and less time with the people we love, it was a moment for all of us to reflect on our relationships with people and with our planet. A fully virtual world has allowed the Department of Global Communications to have meaningful connections with civil society from every part of the world. We were able to host digital events that gave many faith-based organizations a voice in UN conversations on global issues. Some examples include the recently held briefing on World Health Day, which was entitled Resilience and Strength for Gender Equality, Engaging Civil Society in Times of COVID-19. We also organized a youth-led community call early on when COVID started on climate emergency. We also put out a call for stories to shed light on the amazing work done by civil society organizations throughout the world to share the work on climate change. Since we face many climate change related challenges, we believe that good ideas should be widely exchanged, and this is why the United Nations wishes to hear from those who are taking action to inspire others to heal our planet. The Civil Society Unit is proud to have worked with the Buddhist Foundation and others to highlight the need for positive engagement with religious organizations to work towards a more fair, just, and eco-friendly world. For all societies to build back better after the pandemic, we have to ensure that no one is left behind. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated many pre-existing inequalities in communities across the world. The UN Civil Society Unit believes that working together and building partnerships with faith-based organizations will help us achieve a more inclusive and equitable world. The United Nations was born after challenging times and grew to make large impacts on education, peacekeeping, and poverty. We now have a focus on creating a more equitable society and protecting Mother Earth. The COVID-19 pandemic has proven to be a time of extreme difficulty, but the road ahead and the road to recovery will be paved by civil society voices to protect the most vulnerable communities around the world. I am honored to have been able to share my voice in this interfaith digital ceremony, and I look forward to building the Department of Global Communications interfaith partnerships to combat global issues. Thank you again for allowing me to be here, and I hope that everyone stays safe and healthy.
Thank you, Hawa, for your reflections. We find ourselves amidst challenging times, but as you rightly pointed out, the UN was also created in a difficult moment in history, yet has gone forth to do so much tremendous good for the world. We too can utilize this moment of pandemic crises to strengthen our ability to help those in need. And the way to do this is through partnership. I would now like to invite Sarah Hess from the World Health Organization, who is doing tremendous work working together with faith leaders around the world to respond to the pandemic, to share how faith and spiritual values deepen and strengthen our ability to recover in an equitable and just way.
Religious leaders and their faith communities have and continue to play key roles in the pandemic response, including through supporting national health service provision and vaccine delivery, the provision of spiritual care and social support for vulnerable people, and bold advocacy for equity globally. Faith and religious values are critical to this pandemic response. Values of equity, of giving, both financial and in kind, of helping our neighbours, strangers, and all those in need. As we witness these values in the actions and efforts taken by a multitude of different faith actors, it is important to recognise how the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is mitigated through this work. However, the pandemic is not over yet, and there will be long-term consequences of this pandemic experienced by every facet of society. We need to continue to work together in solidarity to make sure all the public health and social measures are sustained everywhere to reduce the spread of the virus, even as vaccines are delivered to many countries in the world. These measures continue to be important to end the pandemic, to save lives, and to reduce pressure on health services. We also need to build relationships of trust as we work together. Trust in the scientific evidence on which we base our actions. Trust in the values we share. Trust in collaboration and partnership grounded in those values. Trust in common objectives. And trust in the vision that the world will heal from this trauma. WHO is committed to working with faith actors in this health emergency and beyond. In our current work, we are hosting a forum where a multi-faith community can come together to listen, co-develop materials, and collaborate on projects in response to the pandemic. Your voices would be welcome there too. I would like to take this opportunity to express my very deep respect for the efforts being taken by faith actors globally in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I am honoured to be walking part of this journey with you.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing your reflections on how, through building relationships of trust, we are able to mitigate the impacts of the pandemic. We have seen with the rise of the pandemic spikes in violence against marginalized groups around the world. I would now like to invite Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi from the Zhuangyan Monastery to share with us reflections and insights from the teachings of the Buddha on how we may be able to end this cycle of violence and cultivate the spirit of solidarity that Sarah spoke to earlier.
Good morning and happy Vesak to everyone. My name is Bhikkhu Bodhi and I am speaking from Zhuangyan Monastery in Carmel, New York. We live in a violent world, a world where the cycle of killing and maiming, of rage and revenge seems to turn without any end in sight. We see this domestically here in the US. We see it in international relations. We see it in violence and war and conflict between different countries. And the question I have long pondered is, how do we bring this violence, this whirlpool of hatred and destruction, to an end? How can we build a world of peace, a world without war and violence? Perhaps an answer comes from the Buddha, the Enlightened One, whose birth, enlightenment, and nirvana we celebrate on Vesak, the full moon day of May. One of the things that makes the Buddha so remarkable a teacher is that he proclaims a message that tackles the poison of killing and devastation right at its root. The first precept in the Buddha's moral code is the training rule to abstain from destroying life, from the destruction of all sentient life, whether humans or animals. This precept has far-reaching implications. The Buddha says that we should refrain from destroying life ourselves. We should encourage others to refrain from killing. We should speak in praise of abstaining from killing and rejoice when we hear that others abstain from destroying life. The reason the Buddha gives so much weight to this precept is because the most basic urge of every sentient being is to live and to thrive. All beings fear death, all fear violence. So taking oneself as the standard, we should not kill or encourage others to kill. To give meaning to this precept, to flesh it out, requires that we first perform a simple act of introspection. If we look deeply into our own mind, we can see that our own most basic urge is to live, that we instinctively recoil from death and from all threats to our survival. On the basis of this simple act of reflection, we can immediately recognize that every other person, whether our dear ones or strangers, also wishes to avoid death and to avoid severe injury to their person. We can understand that every other person wants to live and to live well. This reflection should awaken in us a deep sense of empathy with all humanity and indeed with all other sentient beings. This sense of empathy, if expanded, matures into a feeling of solidarity, the ability to identify with others, to see ourselves in others, and to see others in ourselves. From this emerges the deep wish to preserve the lives of others, to remove the obstacles to their well-being, the mind of protection, the wish to help others to thrive and realize their fullest potentials. It may be difficult for us as isolated individuals to make much of a dent in the violence and random destruction in today's world. But if we firmly hold to the precept of not killing, if we cultivate a mind of loving kindness and compassion for all sentient beings, we will become one little island of peace and tranquility in the midst of turmoil. We'll become a light in the darkness, a source of blessings and goodwill flowing out from our place of residence to the whole world. And if enough of us commit ourselves to a life of nonviolence, loving kindness, and compassionate action, we might just succeed in reversing the tide of destructive violence. We might, in fact, usher in the state of global peace for which we yearn. Thank you again, and may all the blessings of Vesak be with you.
Thank you, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, for your reflections. It is as you say, upon taking in a spirit of self-introspection and cultivating a mind of compassion, we are then able to act with wisdom and become that bastion of light in a sea of darkness and violence, staving off this endless cycle and replacing it with actions that help others around us thrive in harmony and coexistence. I would now like to invite Venerable Bhante Chao Chu from the LA Buddhist Union to share with us reflections around the causes and conditions of our suffering and what we must do in order to create meaningful action in this moment.
I am Bhante Chao Chu from Los Angeles Buddhist Union. COVID-19 has changed the way people think, act, and live. This pandemic is an opportunity to change and adjust to a new way of life. People have been experiencing many kinds of difficulties and suffering. Some people have lost their relatives, friends, and jobs. Family relationships have gone bad for some people due to financial difficulties. Buddhism teaches us that every problem is an effect of causes and conditions. Selfish desires have made this world become miserable. The Buddhist teaching emphasizes that ignorance is the cause of man-made disasters. It is our responsibility to recognize our weaknesses and make plans to move forwards with joint effort for the benefit of all living beings. Animals are suffering because of our greed. The natural environment is being destroyed. The end of the pandemic will take some time and good effort. This is not an easy task. We can develop our mind to make practical methods to cultivate changes for a meaningful difference in the world. We are interconnected. I hope that political leaders have realized that we live in a world where we have to help each other to coexist. COVID-19 is not the only problem in our environment. Many disasters occur due to ignorance and selfish desires. More disasters can be expected as a result of climate change. Some people think that they can fix any problem with the help of modern science and technology. But they fail to see and find solutions when there is a disaster. The COVID-19 pandemic is still a problem. Until we realize the causes of disasters and make changes to our behavior, all living beings will suffer. I hope that human beings will wake up to see the reality. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Bhante Chao Chu, for your call to action, asking us to awaken to the fact that we are all deeply interconnected and that we must work together if we are to coexist. And so, not only coexisting with people, but also with planet, I would now like to invite Venerable Hui Dong from Foguangsan's Shilai Temple to offer a prayer for our natural world.
Greetings to all friends. Happy Vesak Day. In order to heal the world, as indicated by the theme of this event, humans need to heal their own minds first. With greed, hate, and delusion, we cannot heal the world but only destroy it. Only by cultivating love and compassion can we save the world for ourselves and for our future generations. Now I'm going to read a prayer for our natural environment, written by Venerable Master Xingyun. O great and compassionate Buddha, we would like to tell you of an unjust situation on our mind. The world that we live in has fallen ill. In nature, the mother of this great earth, excessive logging has stripped vast areas of vegetation. Exhaust pollution has tainted the beautiful and delicate appearance of our mountains and rivers. The once lush forests have now become the houses and mansions of people. The once crystal clear lakes have now been polluted everywhere. Our natural resources have been decreasing sharply day by day. How will future generations survive? O great and compassionate Buddha, please let us and our future generations be able to play with fireflies under the radiance of star-brimmed skies, be able to sing and dance with nature on the shores of emerald seas, be able to enjoy fresh air in the thick forest of towering trees, and be able to grow together with all things under the sun upon fields that extend beyond the horizon. This is not just for the natural environment, but also for the hometowns of humankind. This is not just for the Earth's existence, but also for our future generations. Please grant us tender hands to soothe and console all sentient beings of this great earth. Please grant us attentive ears that listen to the wondrous sounds of the natural world. Please grant us keen eyes to discover the limitless treasures of the universe. Please grant us compassionate hearts to preserve the ecology of our planet. O great and compassionate Buddha, we must strive to let mountains and rivers be splendorous again. We must strive to let the beauty of the earth reappear. We must strive to restore fragrant, fresh air. We must strive to let nature become a solemn, pure land again. O great and compassionate Buddha, please accept our heartfelt prayer. Please accept our heartfelt prayer.
Thank you, Venerable Huidong, for such a wondrous and heartfelt prayer to our natural environment, reflecting on both the beauty that the world has to offer us, but also our critical role in safeguarding the planet from destruction. As we respond and recover from the pandemic, we must do so in a way that is greened. As mentioned earlier by Dr. Eod, a green recovery cares not only about the well-being of the people, but also of the planet that we live on. I would now like to invite Venerable Bhante Sanatha Vihari from Casa de Bhavana to share with us some reflections on a path to our collective recovery.
Hello, everyone. Greetings. Thank you for extending this invitation to me. And now I would like to provide a message towards a path that can help us in the recovery process. We find ourselves right now in the world, in society, in our communities that are very disrupted. And it seems like there's a lot of forces that are trying to divide us. So I would like to offer this teaching from the Buddha, from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta and the Digha Nikaya, where the Buddha shares with us 7 factors that will conduce to a harmonious society or a harmonious community. And he gives this advice to Ananda for the Sangha of bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. He previously shared these 7 factors to the Vajjian Republic, and now I would like to share them with you. Number 1 is they assemble regularly and frequently. Number 2, assemble unanimously, rise and carry out their duties unanimously. 3, do not establish new laws or cut off old laws, and carry on with such laws as were accepted. 4, honor elders, respect, revere, worship, and think of them worth listening to. 5, do not coerce and force their women and girls to dwell with them against their will. 6, honor shrines within and abroad, respect, revere, and worship them, and do not allow the righteous sacrifice that were formerly made, to be neglected. 7, make good arrangements in regard to the lawful protection, safety, and guarding of worthy ones, so in the future they can enter the land and live comfortably in the land. Surely growth, Ananda, is to be expected. So if we follow these 7 principles, it will help us live in harmony, have our communities live in harmony, have our nation, have the world, and have all beings live in harmony. Here, the Buddha gives us these 7 teachings that we should come together frequently and regularly, that we should come together because we want to come together, work together, and live together, right? A sense of connecting in the community, a sense of connection. And we should obey the rules that we agree to. And they should be equally applied to everyone, and they shouldn't change according to circumstances. So we should all be held responsible to these social contracts that we have. Also, honor our elders, respect their elders, because they have the most experience and they're the ones who carry forth our culture and traditions. And, give people a sense of autonomy. Here, the Buddha talks in reference to women and girls because they were the ones who were subjugated at that time. But we should grant autonomy to all minorities at this time, right? We shouldn't try to control them. And we should honor the shrines. So now we may not honor all the shrines, but any kind of traditional, cultural, or national, or something that inspire us, we should honor those virtues. We should honor those symbols of unity and peace and harmony and justice, no matter where we are in the world. These are the ideals that we can worship and respect, no matter where we're at. And the last one is to provide a place for the worthy ones. Here it's referring to the awakened beings, but we can in general say to all those beings that are working towards enlightenment, to provide the adequate conditions where enlightenment, awakening can be possible. So we need some certain sort of basic needs: food, shelter, medicine, to even start on the path, because without these basic necessities, it's very difficult for us to even have the time, the leisure, or the privilege to practice. So this is what I would like to share as a road to recovery. These 7 factors that the Buddha gave to the Vajrayans from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Bhante Sanatha Vihari, for sharing with us 7 factors conducive to a more harmonious society and community, shifting us from a narrative of division to practical actions that we can take that help us reach a state of unity and togetherness. I'd now like to welcome Venerable Bhante Ethkandawaka Sadajiwa from the Bhavana Society to share with us a discourse on loving friendliness, helping us reach a state of harmony within.
Let us pray for the world to get rid of this suffering and painful, all these unhappy conditions from this world. Having that metta-thoughts, let us chant this metta discourse on loving friendliness. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long or large, medium, short, shuttle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk all life to protect the only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment, whether standing, walking, or sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision. Removing desire for sensual pleasures, one comes never again to birth in the womb. By means of these meritorious deeds, may I never join with the police. May I join always with the wise until the time attain Nibbana. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. From the higher realms of existence to the lowest, may all beings arisen in these realms, with form and without form, with perception and without perception, be released from all suffering and attain to perfect peace. May you all be well, happy, and peaceful. May you all be able to get rid of your suffering, pain, unhappy conditions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Venerable Bhante Sadajiwa, for your prayers and blessings for us to be free of pain, suffering, fear, and unhappy conditions, while also inspiring us to adopt a boundless heart of compassion. I'd now like to invite Venerable Bichoni Si De Yuan from Buddhist Tzu Foundation to reflect with us on how we can expand this boundless heart of compassion to encompass all sentient beings and empower communities through acts of love.
Venerable Masters, our honorable guests and faith leaders, brothers and sisters, thank you for coming together to send prayers and make reflections on these challenging times. Life is impermanent, and we always have to keep this in mind. Look around the world. Right now, we are faced with global crisis, climate change, and COVID-19's pandemic. Our world is not at peace, and we are not safe. We also see water shortages in many countries. Water equals to life. All living beings depend on water to survive. Without water, crops will not grow and humans cannot live. In addition to pressing natural disasters, we see people's minds are afflicted and ignorance leading to chaos and violence. So, on top of natural disasters and severe pandemic, we also have man-made disasters. In these critical times, we are all in this together like passengers on a boat sailing through high ocean waves. Do not panic. Remain calm and steady. Let us follow the precepts and unite together. Let us love and protect all plants and animals. Think about it. Humans are animals too. Everything on this world is a natural part of the universe. Humans are given the right to live, and yet humans hurt, torture, and kill animals for food and clothing. Seeing this, we call on everyone to give rise to a loving heart. Let animals come and go naturally with the law of karma. We also need to safeguard our mind. With the laws of nature, our thoughts will go through endless cycles of arising and disappearing. These take place inside our mind. So we have to focus on giving rise to kindness. Together with people of the same aspiration, we give to serve the greater good. Now is the time to suggest a plant-based diet to everyone. Plant-based diet can help. We have to put our heart into it and talk to people we meet. By serving as a role model, we can also spread the power of love to really care for and protect all living beings. When we accumulate a large enough amount of good deeds, our world will be full of blessings. This brings peace and harmony. With that, potential disasters are dispelled and our world is protected. So our world needs us to do good now. People helping people will bring forward everyone's power of love to have a better tomorrow. Listen to the calling to do good, no matter what religion you practice. Please inspire and guide others to do good. With the whole and complete love, let us join together in doing good to create a better world. Thank you everyone for joining us online today. Let us pray. May all the Buddha hear our prayers. May we all unite with one heart. Let us spread the seeds of great love, and may there be no suffering year after year.
Thank you, Venerable Si De Yuan, for your prayers and reflections on how we may mobilize our power of love to create the world we wish to live in, while also emphasizing the critical importance of upholding the precepts, particularly no killing, in relation to all sentient beings. I'd now like to invite Dr. Larry Ward of the Lotus Institute to share with us prayers and reflections on the world we find ourselves living in, the beautiful inner world that we have, and how we may, on Vesak Day, lead a life well lived.
This blessed day is an important tradition and celebration in the Buddhist tradition around the world. May we enter it with our hearts full of remembrance and gratitude and joy for the Buddha's birth. Join this day with lanterns and time at the temple, share meals, and honor the baby Buddha before us, within us, and around us. A shared story of when the Buddha was born is that he stood up, took 7 steps, and then pointed up to heaven with one hand and down to earth with the other. The 7 steps the Buddha took are thought to represent 7 directions, north and south and east and west and up and down and here in this present moment. I ask myself now as I remember this story, what of my steps? What of our precious steps? What is blooming as our feet touch the earth? May our steps sink deep into the earth's core, imprinting wellness, deep wellness, imprinting deep justice, imprinting deep harmony among all beings. My prayer on this blessed day, as I stood earlier today before the baby Buddha, joining my hands and requesting that all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from every space and time arise at this hour. So many of us are hurt, wounded by what we have endured and or what we have witnessed, that sometimes we doubt the very purpose and value of life. So many of us are tired and weary. Our bones are aching for rest. Yes, we have seen the true frailty of goodness, and in the quiet hours question what is worth. But I invite all of us to meet the mighty ones who scatter every fear, the kind ones who offer the balm of relief to all beings, and the patient ones guarding the wandering beings, the patient ones who stay home at night with the candlelight of love still burning in the dark. And to know that these mighty ones, these mighty beings, and all of their qualities reside in each one of us. In joy, I recognize the birthright for all of us to awaken, to step into the unremitting stream of wholesome merit, so indestructible that even during sleep and distraction and unskillfulness, this stream still flows toward the ocean of goodness. This modern life is not easy. So much chaos and distraction, so much suffering in view, pulling us apart within ourselves and among ourselves. And yet, this noble state of mind, of body, of Buddha nature, and all nature still courses through our veins. This holy attitude, this energy of enlightenment, freeing us from the prison of a small self. May the solidarity of the deepest Buddha Dharma permeate us with wisdom and compassion as we help one another and all beings cross over the bitter sea of suffering, so we may arrive in beauty, live in beauty, and uplift beauty. I wish for all of us to be our true calling, the presence of love in this world, and to remember our footsteps in the sands of time shall not be repeated nor forgotten, and our tears like moondrops nourish the great pines of our hearts, reaching up toward the blue sky and reaching down, touching the roots of the precious earth. On this beloved day, may we come to know in our bones the delight and joy of a life well lived, a song well sung, reflecting the Dharma light across the mysteries of time and space. Hail, beloved Buddha. Hail, beloved Buddha. All hail, beloved Buddha.
Thank you, Dr. Ward, for inspiring us to be a presence of love in this world and to awaken to our calling to help one another across this sea of suffering. I'd now like to invite Reverend Duncan Ryuken Williams of the USC Shinso Ito Center for Japanese Religion and Culture to share with us prayers and reflections on how we can begin to work towards our collective liberation.
主情無変性願道煩悩無尽性願難訪問無量性願学仏道無常性願上 Greetings for the UN Vesak Day. My name is Reverend Duncan Williams, and today I wanted to offer the chanting of the 4 verses of the Shiguseigan, the 4 verses or vows of the Bodhisattva. The first line, Shujo Muhen Seigando, it means that sentient beings are innumerable, yet we vow to liberate all. It's with that sentiment that I wanted to address the UN Vesak Day in the middle of this global pandemic. We've had so much suffering, a mountain of suffering, enough tears to fill the deep oceans in this pandemic year. And one of the things that has become very clear is how all of us, whatever nation, whatever economic status, we've all been affected by this pandemic, and shows the Buddhist truth of our interlinked destinies and our interconnectedness as a community of sentient beings. And so therefore, when we say we vow to liberate all sentient beings as part of our Buddhist practice, I believe the message is one that says we enact or practice our Buddhist faith to think about our interlinked destinies, but also our liberation. It's not just that our sufferings are connected. And by sentient beings, we mean not just human suffering, but the ecological world, the entire, all beings that are involved in this universe, where everything from the sky to the waters to the land to the all beings are impacted by how we enact our daily lives. And so with that in mind, we must, on this Vesak day, come back to our teachings from the Buddhist tradition that teaches us that when there is greed, we need to come back with dana or generosity. When there is ignorance and delusion that imperils our planet, we must come back with a clear-eyed wisdom or compassion that comes out of our traditions. And when there is hostility and hatred that impacts all of us, we must come back with loving kindness. And so the medicine that the Buddha proposed to those three poisons of delusion and hostility, hatred, and as well as greed, these things that unfortunately have impacted our global ecological environment, let us as Buddhists come back to our tradition of offering instead wisdom, loving kindness, and great generosity. This is what I hope we take away from that first line. All beings, despite being innumerable, their liberation and our liberation are one thing.
Thank you, Reverend Williams, for sharing with us the 4 vows of the Bodhisattva and for expanding on the first vow to liberate all sentient beings. Building upon the medicines you shared to delusion, hostility, hatred, and greed, I'd now like to invite Dr. Aza Karam from Religions for Peace to share with us how service is a key medicine to our collective flourishing.
Greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Azza Karam, and I serve the largest multi-religious organization in our world, the United Nations of Religious Institutions and Communities, if you will. The name is Religions for Peace, and I am absolutely honored and delighted to have this opportunity to address all of you on Vesak Day. This is a very important day, any time of any year, but it is particularly important and poignant at this moment in time when hundreds of thousands have died from COVID-19, when our world is confronting a whole bunch of pandemics bunched together, and we as human beings are having to deal with the consequences of the lack of mindfulness and reflection that we have all in different ways exercised, and that we are all now having to pay for in some respects. We did not look after our planet. And by not looking after our planet, we failed to look after one another. And by failing to look after one another, we failed to look after ourselves. Because our existence and our very survival is interdependent on one another and on this very planet that we have the privilege to be in and to breathe the air of. On Vesak Day, I want to pay special tribute, a special shout out, as they say in this country, America, to the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation. I worked in the United Nations for almost 20 years with so many different kinds of religious organizations. I am particularly touched by the work of the Buddhist Tzu Chi, not only because they have been founded by a remarkable woman leader, and they are being led by remarkable women leaders, but they are served by some of the most remarkable people in the world. The Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation doesn't distinguish who it serves. It exists to serve, especially in humanitarian crises, and heaven knows we have plenty of those. Very much inspired by the best of the ideals of Buddhism, those of service and altruism, the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation deserves a very special recognition and a very special vote of gratitude from me. But it also deserves that from all of us. On this Vesak Day, let us remember one another kindly, including those who may have injured us or hurt us intentionally or unintentionally. Let us be determined to honor the Buddha's message that too much hate, too much love, maybe not the best, but the middle path of loving sincerely, devoutly, through service may well be the salvation of humankind. Happy Vesak Day. Keep working, keep serving, keep loving.
Thank you, Dr. Karam, for your vote of gratitude for all the work Tzu Chi volunteers are doing around the world, and for emphasizing the critical importance of walking the middle path through loving service. You're right in that if we wish to care for each other, we must also care for our planet. And it's in this spirit that I would now like to invite Reverend Fletcher Harper from Green Faith to share with us some reflections on what we must do if we wish to safeguard all sentient beings.
I'm so grateful for the invitation from the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation to share a reflection on Vesak with all of the world's sentient beings, with their well-being in mind and close to heart. A number of years ago, a group of people began to recognize that if it was wrong to destroy the planet, that it was also wrong to profit financially from that destruction. And out of that very simple recognition, a recognition ultimately that was about personal and collective integrity, the fossil fuel divestment movement was born. As we think about the world's sentient creatures, too many of whom, particularly animals, have no say whatsoever in the way in which they are treated, it's important that we all commit towards adopting more compassionate plant-based diets. But to take a note out of the playbook of that earlier movement that I mentioned, it's also time for us to say that if the mistreatment of any sentient creature is wrong, then it's also wrong for us to profit in any way from that mistreatment. And to add the major corporations that are responsible for untold suffering of animals around the planet to the list of companies from which we must divest our holdings. Only in this way, by connecting personal integrity with the alignment of our finances with our most cherished values, will we take a step towards the kind of enlightenment that this special day represents. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Harper, for your reflections on what we must do to care for all sentient beings, raising our transition to more compassionate diets, but also as individuals and organizations, exploring how we can divest from businesses and corporations that exploit vulnerable communities, the planet, and all sentient beings for profit, to ensure that our morals and values are in alignment with our actions. It is in this spirit of alignment that I now invite Reverend Stephen Avino from the Parliament of the World's Religions to share with us what more we can do to ensure that we care for all sentient beings and heal.
First of all, I want to thank the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation for the opportunity to speak at this year's Vesak ceremony. My name is Stephen Avino, and I'm the Acting Executive Director of the Parliament of the World's Religions, the world's premier interfaith convening organization. The first Parliament of the World's Religions was held in 1893 in Chicago and is widely recognized as the birthplace of the modern interfaith movement. 100 years later, the world returned to Chicago in 1993 to celebrate the centenary of that seminal event. Since then, there have been more modern parliaments in Cape Town, Barcelona, Melbourne, Salt Lake City, and Toronto. For the first time in our history, the Parliament will convene virtually for the 2021 Parliament of the World's Religions. So the theme of this year's Vesak ceremony is Healing the World, Prayers and Reflections for All Sentient Beings. In his writing on the 1893 Parliament, John Henry Barrows wrote that the Parliament has brought into relations, friendly and delightful relations, Catholic archbishops, Greek priests, Jewish rabbis, and disciples of the gentle Buddha. Since that historic convening, the Parliament and the global interfaith movement have continually strived to heal the world, on a mission to serve as a living and active prayer for sentient beings. In the Parliament's declaration toward a global ethic, it states, "A human person is infinitely precious and must be unconditionally protected. But likewise, the lives of animals and plants which inhabit this world with us deserve protection, preservation, and care. In our prayer for all sentient beings, we must extend that sense of sentience beyond the confines of humanity, much in the same way the Lord Buddha did. There's no better way to show compassion and love for your fellow sentient beings than to come into contact and get to know those that are different from you, or believe different things and have a different way of life. And you must learn to love and respect that way of life. Without this interfaith dialogue and all types of dialogue and interrelation, how can we solve the problems of this world, such as climate change, the ongoing pandemic, and the heartbreaking violence that consumes our communities? We must talk to each other and learn to listen to our fellow sentient beings and have compassion for each other. In 2021, you can be part of this living prayer. The Parliament will be bringing the world's religious and spiritual traditions together virtually on October 17th to 18th for its 8th global convening, and we really hope you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Avino, for sharing with us pathways to continuously serve as an active living prayer for all sentient beings. From the upcoming Parliament that will be convened digitally in October, to being able to persistently reach out to those that are around us to come to understand what unites us together. I would now like to invite Venerable Swami Mahayogananda from the Vedanta Society of Southern California to share with us how we may begin to awaken from our limited selves and find our common intrinsic nature with one another.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sambuddhaya. I bow down at the blessed feet of the Awakened One. It is with great joy that I join all of you in celebrating this holy day, the thrice blessed day, when Buddha took birth, when he attained enlightenment, and when he attained Mahaparinirvana. How amazing. Buddha was born a man like you and like me, and yet he attained to this awakening. He became awake to the true understanding of reality, which is beyond what we can even say anything about. And then he taught us how to proceed to attain that awakening ourselves. This message is profoundly needed in this day and age, when we are all asleep, as it were, in our own little cubicles, thinking that we are limited human beings, we are Americans, or we are Indians, or we are Chinese, we are men, or we are women. Let us awaken. Awaken. Let us begin. We can begin by reducing this very strong attachment we have to our own country, our own language, our own skin color. Start broadening our horizons. Start feeling compassion for others who maybe don't look quite like us, or talk quite like us, or think quite like us. And find the common denominator. This is the great value of interfaith meetings and interaction and working together. We discover that though I may be a Hindu and you may be a Buddhist, and my friend may be a Muslim and my other friend may be a Jew and a Christian, Though we may have some different understandings of what it means to lead a spiritual life, yet when we work together, we touch our common humanity and our common, shall we say, divinity, or in the Buddha's language, our common Buddha nature. And it shines through, peeking through, though we can't always see it. Let us strive to wake up, to see it, to realize it, to wake up. Let us all wake up. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. May all be happy. May all be free from disease. May all realize what is auspicious. May none be subject to suffering. Om, peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Venerable Swami Mahayogananda, for sharing with us how we can awaken to our true reality by reducing our attachments to our limited selves while also coming together to work together. It's in this spirit that I'd now like to invite Faisal Hu Guangzong, Zhou Ruyi, and Tzu Turkey's volunteers to share with us perspectives on interfaith partnership for Syrian refugees and a prayer for those whose lives have been impacted by the pandemic.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah 的意思呢，就是感谢真主 Allah。我在20多年前认识了慈济。在慈济里面，我发现慈济是一个爱没有分宗教、种族、国籍、肤色的一个慈善组织。在这个组织里面呢，我很高兴我今天能够有这个机会，帮助了土耳其的难民，就是叙利亚的难民，将近有245万人次。那在这里面有慈善、医疗、教育、人文，我们都可以在那边把慈济的精神，也就是爱的精神传达过去。非常感恩各位。
在这个55周年的特别的日子里面，我们感恩上人创立了慈济基金会。我们看到了超越种族、宗教、国籍、肤色的大爱。例如说，帮助了在几千公里以外的叙利亚难民，现在就是我们的乡亲，让他们在异乡，在土耳其能够得以安身立命。当然，这只是一部分，我们未来的主要的目标还是希望能够陪他们走上回家的路。在此非常感恩上人还有全体慈济人的支持与爱护，希望未来能够继续前进，继续努力。
ظاهر بين يديك فعاملنا اللهم بالإحسان إذ الفضل منك وإليك اللهم لا تعاملنا بما نحن له أهل عاملنا بما أنت له أهل إنك أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة اللهم إنا نسألك لبلادنا فرجا عاجلا غير آجل فرجا قريبا غير بعيد يا أكرم الأكرمين اللهم احفظ هذا البلد وسائر بلاد المسلمين اجعل هذا البلد آمنا سخاء رخاء وسائر بلاد المسلمين اللهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا شافي الأمراض يا شافي الأمراض يا شافي الأمراض اشفنا واشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين اللهم اصرف عنا هذا الوباء وباء كورونا.
Thank you to our volunteers from Tzu Turkey for your tireless efforts in reaching out to Syrian refugees, working with them to ensure that their needs are met, and cultivating a space that they can truly call home. It is in this spirit of home that I would now like to invite Sister Emma Lee and Caritas volunteers to share with us a prayer on healing our common home, transforming fear into hope.
Healing for the world. Prayers for all sentient beings. Loving God, creator of heaven and earth, and all that is in them, you created us in your image and made us stewards of all your creation of our common home. Your blessing blessed us with the sun, water, and bountiful land so that all might be nourished. Open our minds and touch our hearts so that we may attain to your gift of creation. Help us to be conscious that our common home belongs not only to us, but to all future generations, and that is our responsibility to preserve it.
Bless the Lord, you heavens.
Bless the Lord, you angels of the Lord.
Bless the Lord, all you waters above the heavens.
Bless the Lord, sun and moon.
Bless the Lord, stars of heaven.
Bless the Lord, all rain and dew.
Bless the Lord, fire and heat.
Bless the Lord, winter cold and summer heat.
Bless the Lord, ice and cold.
Bless the Lord, nights and days.
Bless the Lord, light and darkness. Bless the Lord, mountains and hills.
Bless the Lord, all that grows in the ground.
Bless the Lord, seas and rivers.
Bless the Lord, all birds of the air.
Bless the Lord, all wild animals and cattle.
Bless the Lord, all people on earth.
May we help each person secure the food and resources that they need. Be present to those in need in these trying times, especially the poorest and those most at risk of being left behind. Transform our fear, anxiety, and feelings of isolation into hope, so that we may experience a true conversion of the heart. Help us to show creative solidarity in addressing the consequences of this global pandemic. Make us courageously to embrace the changes that are needed to search of the common good. Now more than ever, may we feel that we are all interconnected in our efforts to lift up the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor.
Congratulations to the Foundation for your 55 years labor in this work. Pray in us for eternal. We make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Emma Lee and our Caritas volunteers for the beautiful prayers for us to work together to preserve our common home for future generations to come, and to have the courage to embrace the changes that are needed to have a better future for all sentient beings. It is now my deep joy to invite the founder of Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, Venerable Dharma Master Zen Yen, to share with us her reflections on the pandemic and the actions we must take in order to heal from the tragedies brought forth by the confluence of crises we find ourselves in.
近来心总是那样的悲痛哀戚，难以言喻。看到了这一波疫情笼罩全球，已经1年多了到现在好像越来越顶峰，越来越高，到底要升级到什么程度？看看印度，我一直都在叮咛的，一直都在注意的。我就说，这个时候是急难我们一定要快速的成为不请之师，不要等待他们来求援。我们现在要借力使力。巴比亚神父他们最近就是要投注到 医院里啦，在神父呢有27位，他们就是抱着呢，就去这间病院去支援，被感染啦，没机会好过出来啦。我就说不可以，不可以让他们没有机会出来。我们要尽心力，给他们呢足够的防护。他们抱着仁德慈爱这一份充分的爱心啊，勇气呢进去，希望啊他们欢喜平安再出来。所以现在就是需要呢全球人的爱心，平安人呐，要去救拔苦难人，有形的资源给更需要的无形的，但是呢非表达出来不可，那就是虔诚，那就是要用斋戒的表达，真正的要复生爱生。想想在地球上呢78亿多的人口，每1秒钟呢有2500多的动物进入了嘴巴，1年当中呢800多亿的生命总是这样消失掉，这样的吃它，那只不过是贪口欲而已哦，不是对人的生命健康有帮助。现在啦，疫情这样的严重，就是要警惕了我们人，要赶快改变一个方式的生活，从那样的纷乱的心态，那样的意念升高的习惯，是否把它转变过来，转荤如素？现在的灵方妙药，转荤如素，这就是智慧。真的，我们的社会人间呐，才会快速恢复到了健康，恢复到了以往的自由。我的心，我们大家要启发一念虔诚无私的爱，大家呢来共同付出，期待天地之间呐，风调雨顺呐，病气消弭呐，疫情消弭，真的总是需要度过这样的时间。要度过呢，就是要人心要真正的和合复写起来。化解恶念，结善缘，祈求天下无灾，岁岁年年。
Thank you to our Global Tiji volunteers for your prayers for purified minds, societies of peace, and a world free of disasters. And also thank you, Venerable Dharma Master Zen Yen, for your reflections and your critical call for us to give rise to a heart of sincere love and piety through taking action and changing our behavior for the sake of all sentient beings. To all those who have been working tirelessly to respond to those impacted by the pandemic, we hope that you are staying safe, and our heart goes out to you. As we come to a close to this digital ceremony, I hope that you have been able to find reprieve and solace in the past 90 minutes, and that you now feel re-energized to continue along this journey of building a more just and equitable society. I cherish this karmic affinity that we share to be able to be in this digital space together, and I hope that you're able to take the learnings of the spirit of the Buddha's teachings of compassion, interconnectedness, and service to humanity, and apply them to other facets in your life and your work. To our participating organizations who have been so gracious to share their reflections and insights, we're so deeply grateful for all that you do, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and explore how we can build a better world for all sentient beings. With this, I will close with a heart of gratitude, joy, and love, and wish everyone a happy Vesak Day. Thank you so much.